A sunny afternoon turned into a nightmare for little Max. The puppy, no older than a few months, had been playing in the yard when, for the first time, a loud noise startled him. His little body bolted from the safety of the backyard, and the world suddenly seemed too big for him to handle. He ran, dodging strangers, and then, the most terrifying part of his tiny adventure, he realized he couldn't find his way back. Max looked around, confused and afraid. He whimpered, longing for the warmth of home. But in that moment, all he could do was keep walking, hoping the familiar scent of his family would appear again. Max wandered through unknown streets, far from the gentle embrace of his family. Each corner he turned, every building that passed, felt like another world he didn't belong to. He found food scraps in alleyways and slept under benches, but nothing felt safe. Every bark he heard, every car that zoomed past, made him flinch. A small, lonely pup in the middle of a busy city. Max felt so far away from home. But deep down, he knew he had to keep moving. His heart still clung to the idea that he could find his way back, even if he didn't know where back was anymore. Just when Max's energy started to fade, he encountered a woman sitting on a park bench. She looked at him with kind eyes, and for the first time in days, Max felt a glimmer of comfort. The woman didn't chase him away like others had done. She gently called him over, offering a piece of bread. Max hesitated, but his hunger and need for kindness drove him to approach her. The woman smiled softly, rubbing his head. "You poor thing," she whispered, as if she understood his loneliness. For that brief moment, Max felt like he wasn't so lost. After days of wandering, Max sat by the park's fountain, feeling defeated. He had been offered help by kind strangers, but nothing filled the empty space inside him. He missed the familiar scent of his bed, the sound of his family's laughter. Something inside him stirred. He knew he had to find his way back. The city felt like an endless maze, but his heart pulled him toward home, no matter how far away it seemed. Max's resolve hardened. It was time to leave the safety of the park behind and face whatever challenges came next. His journey wasn't over yet. As Max moved through the crowded streets, he encountered his first true obstacle, a busy intersection with cars speeding by. He froze. The noise, the movement, it was all so overwhelming. Max's instinct was to stay still, not daring to cross. But he remembered the warmth of home, his tail wagging in excitement as his family called out his name. Taking a deep breath, he mustered all his courage and bolted across the street. He was scared, but he was determined. There was no turning back. Max's paws were sore, and his legs felt heavy from the long journey. The city was still unfamiliar, but today something was different. As he trotted down a narrow alley, a scent reached his nose. Familiar, comforting. It was the smell of his family's house, the flowers from the garden, the warm air around his favorite tree. His heart raced as he followed the scent trail. Could he be close to home? Max quickened his pace, his tail wagging as hope surged within him. His family had to be near. It was too perfect to be a coincidence. Maybe he wasn't lost forever after all. The wind picked up suddenly, and dark clouds gathered in the sky. Max looked up at the sky nervously. He had no place to shelter himself, no warm hand to guide him. The storm came quickly, raining down in cold sheets that soaked Max's fur. He stumbled into a small corner under a balcony, but the rain didn't stop. He shivered, the cold biting at his tiny body. As thunder rumbled in the distance, Max curled up into a ball, trying to conserve his warmth. He missed his family more than ever. They'd always protected him from storms like this. Would they even know he was out here? As the rain finally slowed and the clouds began to break, Max's eyes caught something that made his heart leap. In the distance, he saw a familiar figure, a silhouette he recognized from long ago. A man with a tall figure and a gentle voice, walking down the street with a child. It was his owner, the one who used to call his name in the mornings. The man stopped for a moment, looking around, and Max could almost hear him calling his name. Max barked, his voice hoarse and weak from days of disuse. He ran forward, his legs trembling. But before he could reach the man, a car drove by, and the figure vanished from sight. Max froze. Was it really him? Or had his tired eyes tricked him? Max's optimism started to fade again. The city felt more like a maze, each turn leading him further into confusion. After the brief glimpse of hope, he hadn't seen his owner again. The streets seemed to mock him, with every step bringing him further away from the home he remembered. In desperation, he approached a family sitting in front of a store. The woman cooed at him, trying to pet him, but when she saw his dirty coat and wild eyes, she pulled back in fear. "Get away from me, you're not mine," she said, shooing him off. Max stumbled back, his heart sinking. He wasn't welcome here either. He wasn't anyone's dog anymore. Max continued to walk aimlessly, but deep within, his spirit was still alive. It was late in the afternoon when he came across a small shelter tucked between two buildings. He sniffed cautiously before nudging the door open. Inside there were more dogs, homeless, abandoned, and broken in their own ways. The shelter was warm, and the people there were kind. They offered him food, water, and a soft bed to sleep on. It wasn't home, but for the first time in days, Max felt safe again. One of the shelter workers, a young woman with kind eyes, knelt beside him. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered, stroking his fur. Max's tail wagged slightly. Maybe he was finding something even more important than home, a sense of belonging. Max slept that night in the shelter, but his dreams were haunted by the past. He dreamt of his family, his playful days running in the yard, his owner's soft voice calling his name, the kids playing with him in the backyard. But as the dream went on, it twisted. The image of his family grew blurry, distant. His owner's faces began to fade, and their voices grew quieter until he could no longer hear them. Max woke up with a start, his heart racing. His memories were slipping away. Was he forgetting what it felt like to belong? Was home truly a place that would accept him back after all this time? Max's resolve grew stronger after the nightmare. The shelter had been a refuge, but it was not his home. It was kind, but it was not the family he missed. He had to keep moving. The kindness of strangers was a comfort, but he wanted to find the one person who could make him whole again. His owner. The memory of his family and his soft bed filled his heart with new determination. He rose from the shelter's bed, ready to take the next step in his journey. Max was not just going to return home. He was going to find the way back, no matter the cost. For days, Max trudged along through unfamiliar streets. There were moments when his legs ached and hunger gnawed at his stomach. The doubt crept in again. What if he never found his family? What if he had been abandoned for good? But then he thought of the kindness of strangers, of the faces that had shown him warmth when he was lost. He could not give up now. Max's paws may have been sore, but his heart was full of hope. As long as there was a sliver of possibility that he could find his family again, he would keep going. While walking through a narrow alley, Max heard a small whimper. Curious, he followed the sound and found a tiny kitten, abandoned and alone, much like he had been. The kitten looked up at him with wide eyes, clearly frightened, but too weak to run away. Max hesitated for a moment, but then nudged the kitten with his nose, offering the small creature comfort. It was a simple act, but for Max, it felt significant. He wasn't just finding his way home for himself, he could help others too. He wasn't as lost as he thought. As Max continued his journey, he stumbled upon something unexpected. His collar. It lay in the street, half buried under a pile of leaves, weathered and worn. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized it. This was the collar his family had put on him when he was just a puppy, a symbol of the love they had given him. The collar was a reminder of everything he had lost, but also of everything he was still fighting for. With newfound strength, Max picked it up gently in his mouth and continued walking, his determination to reunite with his family stronger than ever. Max carried the collar in his mouth as he walked through the streets. It was a small, tangible reminder of his past, the family he missed, and the life he longed to return to. His legs were tired, and his stomach growled. But he pushed forward, unable to let the memory of his family slip away. The collar felt like a connection to his former life, and it gave him strength. He couldn't let it go. He would find them. The world seemed endless, but Max believed, with all his heart, that if he kept moving, his family would be waiting for him at the end of his journey. Max's journey led him to a small bridge over a creek. The moonlight shimmered on the water, and he stopped for a moment to rest. As the quiet night surrounded him, the loneliness crept in. There was no warm bed waiting for him, no gentle voice calling his name. The stillness of the night felt like a reminder of everything he had lost. But then, something unexpected happened. He felt a soft paw on his own. A stray dog, equally tired and worn, walked up beside him. They both looked at each other in silence, two souls bound by similar journeys. In that moment, Max realized he wasn't completely alone. The world may be big and full of strangers, but there was a silent understanding in the shared struggle. The stray dog sat beside Max for hours, offering him silent companionship. Eventually, they both lay down on the cool ground, each in their own way, finding comfort in the presence of the other. Max closed his eyes, remembering the warmth of his family's touch, the way they would tuck him in at night. He missed them more than ever. But this small moment of connection with another creature helped ease the ache in his heart. Tomorrow he would continue his search, but for tonight he had a friend, even if only for a short while. Max woke early the next morning, the weight of his journey pressing heavily on his bones. As he walked through a busy intersection, a sound caught his ears, a sound that made his heart jump in his chest. It was the sound of children laughing. The joy in their voices felt so familiar. He turned, searching through the crowd, his eyes wide with hope. There, just beyond the corner, a group of children played with a dog, tossing a ball around in the yard. It wasn't his family, but the sight of the playful dogs reminded him of what he had left behind. A small flicker of hope ignited in his heart again. He was getting closer. Max followed the laughter of the children for blocks, his paws aching with each step. His heart raced, and his hopes soared higher with every passing moment. But as he rounded the corner, ready to finally reunite with the familiar faces he had missed for so long, he saw the truth. The children were playing with another dog, a different puppy that looked just like he had once been, happy, well cared for, and loved. Max stopped in his tracks, his tail drooping in disappointment. It wasn't his family. It wasn't home. The realization hit him hard, but he couldn't afford to give up. He had to keep going, even if it felt like everything was slipping away. Max wandered through the city, heart heavy with discouragement, when a familiar smell reached his nose. It was the scent of fresh flowers. The same flowers that grew in his family's garden. He looked around, his senses sharp, and as he walked closer, the smell grew stronger. Could it be? He moved quickly, ears perked up, and tail wagging with tentative excitement. As he turned the corner, there it was, his old street. His heart pounded in his chest. He was so close. Max took a deep breath, filled with determination. He was finally near his home. Max stood at the end of his old street, staring at the house that he once called home. It looked the same, bright and welcoming, with the garden he used to play in, the swing his family had built for him. But there was no sign of his family. The house was quiet. Max hesitated, wondering if they had moved on without him. Maybe they'd given up, thinking he was gone forever. His heart wavered for a moment, but then the memory of their love, the way they cared for him, pushed him forward. He had to try, even if it seemed impossible. Max circled the yard, sniffing the familiar ground, hoping to find some clue that would lead him to his family. His heart raced as he pawed at the front door, barking, hoping that someone would hear him. Minutes passed, and there was no response. He barked again, louder this time, and waited. Just as he was about to give up, The door creaked open, and a woman appeared. His owner's wife, the woman who had always given him treats and a gentle rub behind his ears. She looked down at him, her eyes widening in shock. "Max," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. Tears filled the woman's eyes as she bent down to lift Max into her arms. The moment their eyes met, everything fell away. Max's tail wagged furiously as he nuzzled against her, feeling the warmth of her embrace once more. The bond between them had never truly been broken, not by time or distance. He was home, and it wasn't just the house that welcomed him. It was the love of the family he had never forgotten. Max had found his way back, not just to a house, but to the people who would always love him. As Max settled back into the warmth of his family's home, the woman walked over to the kitchen counter and picked up something small from the table. Max tilted his head in curiosity as she placed it gently on the floor. It was a tiny puppy, its fur soft and new. The woman smiled at Max, her voice filled with love. "We've missed you so much, Max," she whispered, "but we also got a little surprise for you." Max's tail wagged at the sight of the new puppy. It was the family he had always known, and now it was complete again. Max lay on his old bed, watching as the tiny puppy curled up beside him. It was as if everything had come full circle. The pain of being lost, the struggles he faced, had all led him back to this moment. His family was there, his home was there, and the love he had missed for so long was finally real again. Max licked the tiny puppy's ear, giving a soft, loving whimper. He had found his way back, not just to a place, but to everything that truly mattered. And as the night settled in, Max knew that this was where he belonged, forever. Max watched the little puppy with gentle eyes, his heart swelling with love. The tiny creature had no idea of the world outside, no idea of the loneliness or the journey Max had just completed. But as the puppy nestled against him, Max felt a deep sense of peace. His journey wasn't just about finding his way home. It was about realizing what home truly meant, not just a place, but a bond, a love that could never be broken. And now, he would protect this little one the way his family had always protected him. In the days that followed, Max's family showered him with love and care. He was given a soft bed, delicious food, and all the attention he had missed. But what mattered most was the way his family embraced him, as if he had never left. His owners often spoke of how much they had missed him, how the house had felt empty without his playful bark echoing through the halls. Max could sense the healing in their voices, in the way they touched him, and it made his heart swell with gratitude. They had never given up on him, just as he had never given up on finding them. Max had grown used to the quiet comfort of home, but the little puppy, who had been named Bella, was full of energy and curiosity. She often tugged at Max's tail or tried to climb onto his back, trying to get his attention. Max, now the protector, allowed her to explore, watching over her with patient eyes. He had once been the curious one, running and jumping without a care in the world. Now, it was Bella's turn to experience the joys of life, safely and surrounded by love. One sunny morning, Max's family decided to take him and Bella for a walk in the park. As they walked down the familiar paths, Max could feel the cool breeze on his fur and hear the rustle of leaves in the trees. For the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. Bella pranced ahead, her tiny paws moving swiftly, while Max trotted beside his family, grateful for the simple joys of life. The walk was more than just a stroll in the park. It was a symbol of everything he had fought for: safety, love, and the bond he shared with those who cared for him. One evening, as the family sat together in the living room, Max's owner shared stories of the time Max had been missing. It was clear how much they had missed him, how their hearts had ached for the dog who had been more than a pet. "We never gave up on you, Max," his owner said, smiling softly. "We knew you would find your way back to us. And when you did, we knew our family was whole again." Max listened, his heart full. He had never doubted that he would find them, but hearing their love and devotion out loud made everything feel complete. He wasn't just a dog to them, he was family. Max began to teach Bella the lessons he had learned on his long journey. Every day they would go on short walks, exploring the garden and the neighborhood together. Max would show Bella where to find the best spots to dig, the safest corners to rest, and how to follow the path back home. Max had become a guide, not just for himself, but for the little one who had no idea of the world outside their safe home. Bella looked up to him, her wide eyes trusting him completely. And Max, with all the wisdom of his experiences, was ready to be the teacher. A few months later, another storm rolled in. The winds howled, and the rain began to pour. Max's fur bristled with instinctive unease, but this time he wasn't alone. Bella looked up at him, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Max, remembering the storms he had endured alone, moved to her side. He nudged her gently, guiding her to the corner of the house where they could stay dry. "It's okay, Bella," Max whispered, his body shielding hers. This time they faced the storm together, and Max knew, with certainty, that nothing could tear them apart. One afternoon, Max and Bella were playing in the yard when a loud noise echoed from across the street. Bella jumped, her ears flat against her head, looking up at Max in confusion. Max didn't hesitate. He walked calmly toward the noise, guiding Bella with him. The noise came from a construction site nearby, but Max was no longer afraid. He stood tall and confident, showing Bella that there was nothing to fear if they faced it together. As they walked past the site, Bella glanced up at Max, her trust in him unwavering. Max had become her hero, just as his family had once been his. Max's family had always been kind, but one day, they decided to take him to a special place, the animal shelter, where Max had spent his first few days after he had gotten lost. Max wasn't sure what to expect, but when they arrived, the memories rushed back. The kind workers who had given him food, the dogs who had shared his loneliness. He looked up at his family, then down at Bella, and knew that he had come full circle. His journey had started in that shelter, but it had led him back to this: love, safety, and a new life with the family he cherished. As the years went by, Max grew older. His fur became a little grayer, his steps slower, but his love for his family remained as strong as ever. Bella, now fully grown, had become his companion in every sense. One quiet evening, Max lay beside his family as they sat in the living room. He felt a peaceful contentment fill his heart. The journey he had taken, the loneliness, the struggles, the longing for home, had brought him to a place where he was truly loved. As he rested his head on Bella's fur, he knew that he had found something more precious than a home. He had found a family who would love him for the rest of his life. Max's journey had touched many lives, and his story was one of resilience, love, and hope. Over time, his family shared his tale with others, reminding them that no matter how lost they might feel, the love they seek is never far away. Max's legacy wasn't just in the memories he left behind, but in the hearts of those who had shared his journey. He had been lost, but he was found. And that, in the end, was all that mattered. Years passed, and Max grew older, but the love in his home only seemed to grow stronger. His family expanded with the arrival of new faces. First, a child who was born into the family, then a few more pets who joined the household. Each new addition brought with it a sense of renewal, a reminder that life continues to bloom in unexpected ways. Max may have been getting older, but he still had the same protective instinct, the same watchful eyes, and the same gentle heart. And now, he was not just the guardian of his family's hearts, but of their home. One afternoon, Max watched from his favorite spot in the living room. As the little child took her first steps, Bella was by her side, the two of them guiding the child with playful nudges. Max's tail wagged slowly, his old body growing tired, but his heart filled with pride. He had been there to witness the start of his own journey back to this family, and now he was here for the start of someone else's. His legacy, the lessons he had learned about love, courage, and resilience, were now being passed down to the next generation. Max couldn't help but feel like everything had come full circle. As Max's steps became slower and his sight grew dim, he spent more time resting beside his family. He still loved to be near them, still cherished the sound of their laughter and the warmth of their touch. But the energy he once had begun to fade, replaced with the quiet wisdom of age. Max had lived a life filled with adventure, love, and reunions, and now he was at peace. Bella had become a trusted companion, often staying close by his side, and the family's new pets looked up to him as a figure of strength and security. Max knew that, even as he slowed, he was still giving his all to those he loved. One evening, as the sun began to set and painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Max lay in the garden, basking in the last warmth of the day. Bella lay beside him, and the little child sat nearby, her small hand resting gently on Max's fur. It was the perfect moment, one of quiet reflection, love, and connection. Max could feel the love of his family surrounding him, wrapping him in comfort. The world had always felt so big and overwhelming when he was lost, but now everything had come together in the most beautiful way. He had found what he was meant to find: home. Not just a place, but the love that filled it. One chilly morning, as the first light of day filtered through the windows, Max felt a change. His body was tired, his breaths were shallow, but his heart was filled with peace. The family gathered around him, each one offering their love and comfort as they always had. Max looked around at the faces of the people and animals he had loved. He saw Bella, who had grown into a wise and loyal companion, and the family who had given him everything. With a soft sigh, Max closed his eyes, his body finally resting after the long journey. But his spirit remained, woven into the love of his family, the stories shared, the lessons passed down. Max had been more than a dog. He had been a symbol of perseverance, a beacon of hope, and in the hearts of his family, his love would live on forever. After Max passed, the house felt different, quieter, more still. But life, as it always does, continued. Bella, who had always looked up to Max, took on the role of protector, watching over the family with the same fierce loyalty that Max had shown. The children grew older, and the lessons Max had imparted on them, without even realizing it, shaped the way they treated the world and the people around them. The family found comfort in the memories of the dog who had shown them the true meaning of love and dedication. Every year, they visited the park where Max and Bella had taken their first walks together, a place that held so many memories. They would sit there in the quiet moments, remembering Max and telling stories of his courage and the journey he had taken. And though he was no longer physically with them, they knew Max's spirit remained, woven through the fabric of their lives. Years passed, and Max's story became a tale told over and over to each new generation of children who entered the family. They would sit at the fireplace, with Max's old collar displayed on the mantel, and listen to the story of the dog who had been lost and found, who had never given up, and had brought a family together. The collar had become more than just a symbol of his past. It was a symbol of hope, of enduring love, and of the importance of never giving up, no matter how far the road seemed. As new puppies were welcomed into the family, Max's lessons continued to be passed down. They learned the same values of loyalty, compassion, and courage that Max had embodied. The new pups would chase balls in the yard, bark playfully in the garden, and curl up at the feet of the family. But always in the background was the memory of the dog who had taught them all how to love unconditionally. On the anniversary of Max's passing, the family stood together in the garden, looking up at the stars. They planted a tree in his honor, a symbol of life, growth, and the everlasting bond they shared. As the little one touched the tree with her small hands, she looked up at her parents and said, "Max is still here, isn't he?" Her mother smiled softly, nodding. "Yes, sweetheart, Max will always be with us, in our hearts and in everything we do." And with that, Max's legacy continued, not just as a dog, but as a reminder that love, no matter where it comes from, lasts forever. Several months after planting the tree in Max's honor, the family felt the loss more than ever. The house, though filled with life, seemed quieter without Max's familiar bark echoing through the halls. But as they walked through a local animal shelter one afternoon, something unexpected happened. A small, timid puppy, no more than a few months old, looked up at them with wide, hopeful eyes. The puppy's fur was soft and light brown, and it was obvious she had been through difficult times. The family could see in her eyes the same lost, longing expression they had seen in Max when he first came to them. It was as if the universe had brought them a new companion to help heal the lingering ache. After some discussion, they decided to bring her home. They named her Luna, and though she was not Max, there was something about her, something that reminded them of his warmth, his resilience, and the way he had once wandered, lost, but always determined to find his way home. Luna's arrival didn't replace Max, but it allowed his family to open their hearts once again. As Luna settled in, her playful nature began to fill the house with energy. She had the same curiosity that Max had, exploring every nook and cranny of the house with excitement. The children adored her, and Bella, now older and wiser, took Luna under her wing, guiding her as Max had once guided her. Months passed, and Luna grew stronger, more confident, and even more playful. But the memory of Max never faded. On quiet evenings, the family would gather around the tree they had planted in his memory, telling stories of Max's brave journey and the lessons he had taught them all. Luna would sit beside them, her ears perked up, as if she could understand the weight of the stories being shared. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Luna's curious nose led her to Max's old collar, hanging on the mantel. She sniffed it carefully, tilting her head, as if sensing the significance of the piece of history. The family smiled, remembering how Max had once worn it with pride. It was clear to them that Luna had already begun to embrace the spirit of Max, the protector, the lover, the faithful companion. The years continued to roll on, and Luna grew into her role as the family's new protector. But Max's legacy had become more than just a memory. It had become a living presence that guided the family through difficult times. Every time they faced a challenge, every time they felt lost, they would remember the courage Max had shown on his journey back home. They remembered how, no matter how far he had wandered or how much pain he had endured, he had always fought for love. In the same way, Luna had started to fill the void that Max had left, not by replacing him, but by embracing the values that he had embodied. The family came to realize that Max's journey had not only led him back home, but it had also created a legacy that would continue through future generations, through their love for each other and the animals they welcomed into their lives. Years later, as the children grew up and left the home to begin their own lives, the family continued to cherish the memory of Max. They often shared stories with their own children about the dog who had once been lost but found his way home, and how his journey had taught them to always hold on to love and hope. The family had grown, expanded, and changed, but Max's spirit was woven into the very fabric of who they were. One day, when Luna grew older, the family had a quiet conversation in the garden beneath the tree they had planted for Max. The children had grown into adults, and the family had lived through many more seasons of life. They decided that it was time to share Max's story with others, to pass on the lessons he had taught them. They began volunteering at the same shelter where they had once found Luna, offering hope and care to the lost animals in need of love. Every time a new dog or cat found its way to a home, they shared Max's story, knowing that even though he was no longer with them physically, his journey would continue to inspire others to keep going, no matter the struggles. Max's legacy became a beacon of hope for all who heard his story, and his spirit never truly left the family. The tree that had been planted in his honor continued to grow, its roots deepening as the years passed. Each new generation would stand under its branches, feeling the warmth of the love that had started with Max's journey. And as the family gathered together, telling the story once more, they felt his presence, always watching over them, always guiding them, just as he had done when he was with them. Max had found his way back home, but in doing so, he had created a legacy that would never fade. His love, his bravery, and his unwavering spirit would continue to live on in the hearts of all who loved him forever.